Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Anton Door Zoological Station for the 150th anniversary. I would also like to thank the organizer for inviting me to deliver this lecture, and thank you all of you for listening to me. I'm really sorry that I couldn't join you due to the pandemic situation. So healthy rivers are often associated with healthy oceans. As uh, can you, sorry, it didn't move. Okay. Okay. So as shown in this map, for example, the marine environment of Hong Kong here is heavily influenced by the freshwater discharge from the rivers in this Pearl River Delta region, which contain various kinds of pollutants. In this talk, I will discuss about the major threats to our marine biodiversity, the problems of marine pollution, and how global initiative can solve this problem. Then I will introduce three major global initiatives. So currently, our marine biodiversity is facing six major threats, which include climate change, habitat loss, pollution, biological invasion, overfishing, and diseases. Marine pollution is one of the major threats to our marine biodiversity and fishery resources. More recently, inadequate governance that leads to more habitat loss, more pollution, and overfishing is also regarded as another threat to our ocean. So we do need to tackle water pollution for protecting our oceans. Improving water quality, in fact, will also bring many benefits to our society. Clean water is vital to not just marine biodiversity, but also our survival. It is because a healthy ocean can provide a stable climate and a marine ecosystem that offer what we need, such as oxygen and safe seafood for our consumption. In addition, the ocean also supports our recreation, tourism, and blue economy. However, the pollution problem is very complex. It was estimated that 80% of marine pollutants actually came from land-based sources, which consists of both pond sources and non-pond sources of pollution. The latter is more difficult to deal with. With the globalization, there are movement of natural resources, products, and waste across countries through international trade. So to speak, pollution has no boundaries and will require international collaboration in solving this problem. Now, I would like to ask, why are global initiatives important to tackle pollution problem? Let's take a look of two examples. There are a few very successful cases which emphasize the importance of science policy interface, using science to support evidence-based policy formulation and informed decision making. The recovery of ocean depletion in stratosphere is one of the best examples. First, scientists discovered that the depletion of ocean layer was due to the release of chemicals like chlorofluorocarbons. Then scientists educate the policymakers and propose the globally ban of the use of these chemicals. With the support from the United Nations Environment Programme and joint efforts from many countries, we see a sharp decline of these ocean depleting chemicals over time. At the same time, we see the progressive recovery of our ocean layer. It is a very happy story indeed. The second successful story was about the ban of the use of organotin compounds in anti-fouling system in seagoing vessels, leading to population recovery of oysters and marine gastropods around the world. So scientists need to do good science and at the same time educate policymakers. Scientists can help policymakers to answer regulatory questions and even conduct science study to address their needs. Science policy is often based on evidence generated from high-quality scientific research. As you may know, the United Nations has declared a war against ocean plastic since 2017. There have been many global initiatives and campaigns to fight against plastic pollution, such as Plastic Free Oceans campaign, leading to a very good result that many countries have now banned the use of single-use plastics. In contrast to plastics, however, chemical pollution has received comparatively little attention from the general public around the world. Nevertheless, the UNEP recognized the importance of management of chemicals pollution and has published 2 volumes of the Chemicals Outlook. In the Chemicals Outlook, UNEP would like to strengthen the science policy interface and the use of science in monitoring progress, priority setting, and policy making throughout the life cycle of chemicals and waste. In early this year, a group of scientists published an article in the policy forum of the journal Science. They call for establishment of a global science policy body on management of chemicals and waste. Such a governing body would be similar to the one as IPCC. This body should be an inclusive one with members from various sectors from both developing and developed nations with a gender balance. This new governing body will be able to foster joint international actions to reduce chemical pollution. There is a good news. The United Nations Environment Assembly has already reviewed the proposal and is now positively considering the development of such a governing body. Okay, apart from the initiative of the UNEP, other organizations have also launched some global programs to tackle marine chemical pollution. Here, I would like to introduce 3 of them. The first one is called Back to Blue. Back to Blue project is initiated by the journal The Economist and the LaPointe Foundation from Japan. These 2 organizations realize the need to improve science-based approaches and solutions for ensuring ocean sustainability. They found that 83% of the general public are concerned with issues related to our ocean health. Back to Blue focus on 3 issues, namely plastic pollution, chemical pollution, and marine biodiversity. They would like to transform scientific knowledge into solutions and address pollution issues. The Economist, the journal, will be able to bring the issues to wider audience and stakeholders with a view to encouraging the public, business, and governments to work together to solve these issues. In comparison with the 2019 figure here, it is expected that the global chemical production will increase by 68% by 2050. So we will expect that chemical pollution in our ocean will get worse. To address the marine chemical pollution, Back to Blue team has been working with scientists and various stakeholders from around the world to develop this important white paper, The Invisible Wave, Getting to Zero Chemical Pollution in the Ocean, which was published early March in this year. This white paper aims to bring the issue of chemical pollution in the ocean to a wider audience and alert people that this problem will get worse and will require urgent and coordinated actions. I was delighted to be one of the members in their expert panel to explore different ways for achieving zero chemical pollution through governmental, industrial, and financial interventions, advancing policy at national and international levels, and seeking contribution from various stakeholders. Unlike plastic, which are visible, chemical pollution is often invisible. And we need to educate people about the significance of chemical pollution and their impact. During the communication, it is important to highlight the environmental and health causes by inaction. For instance, the hypoxia caused by eutrophication in the Gulf of Mexico result in a loss of over 800 million US dollars in terms of the annual fisheries revenue. I hope you will have a chance to download and read this important report and join us to tackle chemical pollution for the ocean. Back to Blue team also invented a plastic management index and applied it for 25 selected countries. Here, taking China as an example, you can see here, the index comes with a score 63.3 and a rank of 10 among the 25 countries being tested. Most importantly, the index comes with a breakdown of scores in governance, systemic capacity, and stakeholder management, from which areas for improvement can be identified. Through this index and benchmarking, this can promote best practices and point to areas for improvement. If every country can make advancement in the score, the global plastic management will be ultimately improved. However, the entire process is on volunteer basis. Active engagement of the country is not guaranteed. Okay, let's take a look at the next project or the next example. The name is called Global Monitoring of Pharmaceutical Projects. This project was created by Professor Alistair Bossell from York University in the UK. He and his team developed standard methods for sampling and chemical analysis for 61 commonly used medicines. There were sampling kits, training materials, and videos for partners to ensure that all sampling and the samples were collected in order. Frozen samples were returned by courier service to York University for chemical analysis. The project successfully engaged 127 researchers from over 100 countries and mobilized them to collect river samples from 258 rivers around the world. Given the simplicity of the sampling, people from developing nations could also join the project, enabling capacity building around the world. The results of the project are very meaningful because we can identify polluted rivers, geographical patterns of pollutants, pollutants of concern, and their relationship between pollution intensity and the socio-economic status of the countries, and thereby the result can inform policy making for improving water quality in global rivers. So my team contributed to collect samples from rivers in Hong Kong and in Bhutan. This is a photo of me taken in Temple rivers in Bhutan, while this is in a Kaita River and also Lam Chin River in Hong Kong. The results of this study have been widely reported by media worldwide in February this year. For example, the South China Morning Post stated that a sea of medicine is flooding our rivers as the news headline, highlighting the seriousness of the problem. Let's take a look at the main results we find. We find almost all rivers has at least one type of medicine. The figure here shows the rank of a cumulative concentration of medicines being detected in each river. The top 10 most polluted rivers are located in Bolivia, Pakistan, Tunisia, Ethiopia, Indian Congo, Kenya, Armenia, Israel, and Costa Rica. Many of these highly polluted rivers are located in Africa, Asia, and South America. 2 rivers in Hong Kong are also ranked quite high as the top 38 and 55 among the 250 rivers in the world. Then you may ask, how about the results from Italy? So let's take a look. We collect one samples from one river at 8 different stations in the river in the womb. There is a good news for you. Although we did find medicines in the river in womb, their concentration were relatively low, and ranked at the top 29 cleaner rivers in the world. In the warm river, we find relatively high concentration of paracetamols, followed by this antinolol, a drug to treat hyperpressure, and then another drug to treat nerve pain and hyperlepsy. So, so to speak, the river in Rome is clean. Interestingly, we observed the level of contamination in rivers actually closely related to the socio-economic status. Rivers in countries with the lower middle income are the most polluted. Why? On one hand, people there have money to buy and use medicines. On the other hand, there is no green infrastructure for properly treating their waste and also wastewater. While there is no regulation on drug prescription in these countries. In addition, we find the pollution level generally increase with median age of the population and poverty, indicating that old people and poor people will suffer more from disease and require the use of medicines. The drug use pattern is also dependent on the economic status. In low to middle income countries, the most commonly used drugs or those found in rivers are painkillers and antibiotics, whereas diabetic drugs and antidepressants are most commonly used and found in rivers in high income countries. We would like to ask, is the pollution situation alarming and threatening? The answer, unfortunately, is yes. Among the sampling points of 1,000 over 1,000 sampling locations, a quarter of them had at least one medicine exceeding the safety limit that may cause harm to aquatic life or development of antimicrobial resistance. By looking at this diagram, for example, in the Asia, by looking at the blue bars, they represent the exceedance of the safety limit for antibiotics in terms of proportion of river with the exceedance. The longer it is, the worse, okay? So as you can see here, in Asia, 8 out of the 13 antibiotics exceed the safety limit, have a high chance leading to antimicrobial resistance. The situation in Europe, the next one, is slightly better, but still having antibiotics with exceedance. So the situation in Hong Kong is even worse. Our Kaitak River is the champion of having the highest record number of medicines with 34 kinds, while it is ranked the top 20 most polluted rivers with antibiotics in the world. And then in this river, we also found 2 antibiotics at the end here with level exceeding the safety limit. So in summary, what we can learn from this global study, we believe monitoring is very important because we can only manage what we can measure. Using standard methods, we can compare the results among different rivers across the world and review the global situation. The result also showed that drug pollution in rivers is widespread and serious in many rivers, especially those in lower middle income countries, which will require urgent attention and assistance to improve their situation. We do observe many places like Australia, New Zealand, and Switzerland, their rivers are relatively clean. So it is possible for other countries to learn from them about their best practices. So let's move on to the final example, which is our Global Estuary Monitoring Program. Our GM program is an extension of the global monitoring of pharmaceutical projects extending from rivers to estuaries. It aims to mobilize international efforts to monitor chemicals of emerging concerns, such as pharmaceuticals, and to co-develop solutions for making estuary cleaner and safer and healthier. The program will address Sustainable Development Goal 14.1 to prevent and reduce marine pollution of all kinds. Luckily, our GM program has been endorsed by United Nations as one of the UN Decade of Ocean Science, for sustainable development as those action program. As you may all know that UN Decade of Ocean Science is the most exciting global initiative for ocean sustainability, which has been officially launched since 1st January last year and will last for a decade. The UN wants to provide a platform to support efforts to reverse the cycle of decline in ocean health and gather ocean stakeholders around the world to ensure that ocean science can create improved conditions for our ocean. There is a slogan, the science we need for the ocean we want. So in December 2020, the UN called for proposal from the global ocean community, allowing stakeholders to plan for decade of ocean scientific research and activities for promoting ocean sustainability. So our GM program is one of them. In our program, our partners, including those from York University in the UK and Baylor University from the US, and Sydney Institute of Marine Science, and also the World Harbour Project from Australia, with funding support from my university, City University of Hong Kong, and the Chinese National Marine Environmental Monitoring Center, we will be able to monitor more contaminants. In the coming few slides, I will briefly introduce the program. First, we will develop standard methods for sampling and chemical analysis, and then invite partners to carry out sampling from around the world. We will conduct all the chemical analysis in Hong Kong. We will also derive the PNIC, predicted no effect concentration, the benchmark value for various target chemicals, so that we can conduct the environmental risk assessment for all the chemicals of concern. Then we will share the results with partners and stakeholders, and we will call for meetings to co-develop solutions for improving water quality, try to make our estuary cleaner and safer for all. At the moment, we are still developing the standard methods. We plan to launch the sampling in Southern Hemisphere in July this year, and then the North Hemisphere will be done in the coming November. We hope that the project will be completed by the end of 2023. During the coming 2 years, we will hold regular meetings with partners and stakeholders. We will have updates of the progress, share data, and co-design the next phase of the program. The next phase of the program could include monitoring of contaminants of emerging concern by using passive samplers. We could also monitor microplastic, pathogen, antibiotic-resistant genes, and so forth. For the passive samplers, we plan to deploy our artificial muscles for monitoring heavy metals. We already doing this in over 30 countries. We will continue this effort. We will also deploy this organic DGT for capturing targeted contaminants of concern. We have already collected oyster from different parts of the world and use them to monitor microplastic and pharmaceuticals in coastal waters. So we are very excited about this global initiative and welcome all of you to join us. For more details of our project, you can go to our website or watch our video. So in conclusion, I hope I can convince you that we really need concerted global effort to tackle marine pollution issues together, to promote ocean sustainability, to further improve the management of chemicals and chemical pollution. A global governing body is needed. It can provide a science-based science policy interface to solve this global issue. From the past experience, good science can help develop good policy and tangible solutions to tackle environmental problems. With the global initiative like Back to Blue and Decade of Ocean Science, I'm very positive about the future of our oceans. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Maybe there are some comments or questions. You can hear well, no? The question.
Yes, I can hear that very well. Thank you.
Perfect. There are some questions. Please.
Many thanks for your important overview. That is exactly, dear Professor Leung, what we were expecting for having a global perspective of the pollution. And thank you for remarking that the only problem, the pollution of the oceans, is not just the plastic, as we are hearing in the last 4 or 5 years, even though we have that problem too, of course. What I'm very concerned about is the 4th dimension of the oceans, that is time. So the problem of how these contaminants are changing over time. So if we have some historical records, if there are some cultural factors that are the reason why in certain regions of the world we have some kind of drugs in the waters rather than others. And the last question is how the global climate change will affect in combination with the pollution, how will affect the ecosystems, life, and humans, because I guess that these contaminants get back right into our dishes and our recipes in our food once we deliver them in the oceans. This is an important point. Thank you.
So fantastic questions and very insightful. For the solution part regarding the social aspect and the culture, this is really true. For example, when we collect samples in Africa, we find actually they dump their waste just in an artificial pond, the wastewater. And then they put all this human manure and the urine waste excreta into this pond. And then you can imagine after heavy rainfall, all this will go into the river. In actual fact, this is not a good way to treat the waste. Then there are some cheap way they can afford to do it, doing on-site treatment like a septic tank that will already cut off the pollutants. Somehow, because they get used to this old method, then they need some people to raise the alarm and then tell them what to do. I think based on this global effort, then people can help each other and educate each other, and then we can make progress. And then we got the second part about the climate change impact on chemical pollutions. I hope you can read the white paper, The Invisible Wave, because we have a chapter to deal with this issue. In actual fact, the situation will get worse because the chemical reaction and also the chemical release rate will be increased by temperature. And then at the same time, we find that the toxicity of chemicals will be increased when the temperature increase as well, especially beyond the optimum temperature. then the aquatic organism will suffer even more. So then the prognosis or the postmortem or the forecast seems not very optimistic when we add on the climate change impact. Thank you very much.
There are some other questions. Please be brief because Professor need to leave here.
Do you have any information about pollution coming from agricultural pesticides that arrive to the sea?
So this is also a very good question, also a worldwide concern. For developed nations, there are law and regulation and also routine monitoring to control pesticides use or biocides use in farming. However, in those underdeveloped nations or developing nations, they suffer most because there are no tight regulation and enforcement. Then from the others, researchers study, we find a lot of these kind of pesticides in those countries, and we need to pay attention to. Thank you very much for your question.